Imagine this. It's the early 2000s, and you're a teenager celebrating your birthday with a mountain of curly fries and a prime rib steak the size of your face. The music is cranked up, the waitstaff are cracking jokes, and the place looks like a cowboy bar collided with a surf shack. Welcome to Hogs Cafe, one of the most iconic restaurant chains in Australian history. Loud, quirky, unapologetically retro, and somehow still family friendly. For decades, Hogs wasn't just a place to eat, it was a whole vibe. But fast forward to today, and that vibe has all but vanished. Stores across the country have closed their doors. The website has gone eerily quiet. The pink pig mascot has faded from shopping strips and city centers. What used to be a booming 80-location empire is now barely hanging on. And the real question is, how did it all fall apart? This is the rise and tragic fall of Hogs Cafe, an Aussie restaurant icon that got left behind by time, trends, and its own missteps. The story begins in 1989 in the tropical town of Airlie Beach, Queensland. That's where founder Don Algie opened the very first Hogs Cafe, inspired by a similarly named joint he'd encountered in Florida. But Algie's version had its own Aussie spin. It was bold, brash, and dripping with Outback Americana fusion. Think surfboards on the wall, neon signs, license plates, and a vibe that was equal parts laid back and over the top. Hogs was made for big groups, big laughs, and bigger meals. And people loved it. For Aussies who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, Hogs was a rite of passage. Kids' birthday parties, family outings, after-game dinners, first dates. Everyone had a Hogs memory, and the food was something else. No one was calling it gourmet, but it was hearty and massive. Their signature 18-hour slow-cooked prime rib became legendary. The curly fries were iconic, and the dessert menu looked like it had been dreamed up by a sugar-hyped teenager in a cowboy hat. The brand caught fire quickly. By the mid-2000s, Hogs had exploded into a nationwide phenomenon. Over 80 locations across Australia, with franchises popping up in New Zealand, Singapore, and Thailand. They marketed hard, leaned into their irreverent attitude, and seemed unstoppable. But behind the scenes, things weren't quite as bulletproof as they looked. You see, food trends change fast. By the early 2010s, Australia's dining landscape had evolved and people wanted healthier options. They wanted fresher ingredients, quicker service, and a cleaner aesthetic. New players were emerging, Grilled with its hipster burgers, GYG with lightning-fast Mexican, and even fast food giants were reinventing themselves with plant-based options and digital menus. Diners were becoming more conscious, more diverse in taste, and a lot less tolerant of chains that didn't keep up. And here was Hogs, still serving the same heavy, meat-drenched menu in restaurants that looked like time capsules from a 1994 theme park. While the rest of the industry evolved, Hogs stood still. What once felt edgy and fun now looked dated and kind of sad. The aesthetic and menu hadn't changed, and worst of all, the leadership hadn't adjusted to the new rules of the game. In 2015, the cracks deepened when founder Don Algie exited the company. Discontent was brewing among the franchisees. Many operators were fed up. They complained of high fees, weak marketing support, and a corporate structure that felt increasingly out of touch. Some said the company ignored feedback and failed to innovate, leaving local store owners stuck with underperforming menus and outdated branding. And the numbers backed it up. From over 80 stores at its peak, the chain had shrunk to fewer than 50 by 2020. Locations were quietly closing down, especially in major urban centers where rent was high and competition was fierce. And once COVID-19 hit in 2020, it was like throwing gasoline on a dumpster fire. Lockdowns devastated dine-in traffic, and Hogs was especially vulnerable. Unlike more agile competitors who had already built robust delivery systems and online ordering, Hogs was clunky and slow to pivot. Their business model was still built around the in-person experience. The birthday songs, the massive plates, the rowdy group dinners. None of that translated well to a pandemic world where people were stuck eating alone on their couches. By 2021, the damage was undeniable. Their website was barely updated and their social media had gone quiet. Loyal fans were posting on forums asking what had happened to their local Hogs, and the answer was usually the same. it had closed with little notice. In an effort to save face, the company tried a rebrand. The name changed from Hogs Breath Cafe to Hogs Australia's Steakhouse. The logo got a mild refresh. They attempted to tone down the kitsch and streamline the design, but to most people, it just looked like putting a new hat on the same tired pig. The hard truth is, consumers have moved on. The younger generation wasn't nostalgic for 90s style Texas diners. They wanted brands that understood social media, offered cleaner menus, and made them feel part of a community. They wanted speed, style, and Instagrammable interiors. Hogs offered none of that. By 2023, the brand was barely a shadow of its former self. Meanwhile, competitors were thriving. Betty's Burgers was opening new stores, fast casual Asian fusion was exploding, and even classic chains like KFC and Domino's were reinventing themselves with app integration and bold marketing. Hogs was simply left behind. And yet, the downfall wasn't entirely due to external pressure. A lot of the collapse came from within. Poor leadership, franchisee dissatisfaction, and a refusal to evolve. The internal culture reportedly became toxic, with trust eroding between store owners and the corporate office. Several former franchisees spoke out publicly, accusing the company of mismanagement and indifference. There were signs of life in late 2023. The new owners announced plans to open a handful of refreshed stores in regional areas, hoping to test a scaled-down, modernized concept. The idea was to focus on simpler menus, updated decor, and a stronger digital presence. But even those efforts felt shaky. No major rollout or media buzz, and there's no clear vision of how they'd win back a generation that barely knew what Hogs was in the first place. The irony is that Hogs Breath still had plenty of goodwill to tap into. Ask almost any Aussie over 25, and chances are they've got a story. Maybe a birthday dinner, a wild night out with mates, or a shared dessert that turned into a core memory. People genuinely loved the place. But the thing is, nostalgia doesn't keep the lights on. In hospitality, good vibes and old memories only go so far if you're not evolving with your customers. So where does that leave us? Is Hogs Breath dead? Not officially. A few stores remain. The brand hasn't been declared defunct, but its cultural footprint has shrunk to near invisibility. It went from icon to afterthought in under a decade. And that's a tragedy for a brand that once had such a strong identity. It's a cautionary tale, really. In business, especially in food, you evolve or you disappear. It doesn't matter how beloved you once were. It doesn't matter how many steaks you sold in 2006. If you don't keep up, you get left behind. And that's exactly what happened to Hogs. The saddest part, it didn't have to end this way. With the right leadership, the right vision, and a willingness to modernize, Hogs could have ridden the wave into a new era. But instead, it stood still. And in a fast-moving market, standing still is the same as moving backwards. So next time you pass by a boarded-up Hogs Breath location, think about what it meant, about the good times, the giant steaks, the curly fries, and then think about what went wrong. Because buried under all the neon and nostalgia is a lesson every business should take to heart. But what do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and let's discuss. And if you enjoyed this story, give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell so you never miss out on more deep dives like this. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay curious.